All right, so when you think about what really drives a country's economy, what comes to mind? Probably things like busy markets, maybe shiny new tech hubs, or huge natural resources, right? But what if I told you one of the biggest keys to prosperity wasn't found in a boardroom, but in a military barracks? It sounds a little strange, I know, but today we're going to unpack this really surprising link between military cooperation and economic growth in Africa.
So what is that secret link? I mean, how on earth do soldiers and security strategy translate into spreadsheets full of good news and economic growth? It definitely feels a bit backward, but it's a question leaders across the continent are taking very seriously. Why? Because getting this right, well, it could unlock some incredible prosperity for millions and millions of people.
And this isn't just some abstract idea. The search for this very answer recently brought together military leaders and defense experts pretty much from all over Africa and even beyond for a huge symposium in Kigali, Rwanda. Now, the official theme was all about using their land forces to build peace and security. But the subtext, the real goal behind it all, it was about laying the groundwork for a truly prosperous future. Okay, so to really get the solution they were talking about in Kigali, we've got to first understand the problem they're up against. And honestly, the single biggest roadblock to economic progress on the continent is just the absolutely crippling cost of instability.
First up, you've got this devastating cycle of constant conflict. It just creates this permanent state of uncertainty. It's like economic quicksand, where trying to build anything that lasts is pretty much impossible.
Then there are the insurgencies that just don't care about borders. These groups create chaos all over the place, right? They disrupt trade, they force people from their homes, and they make it incredibly hard for countries to work together. And then, layered on top of all of that, you've got political instability. When governments are shaky, it just paralyzes any kind of long-term planning, and you can bet it scares off investors who absolutely need some level of predictability before they'll commit serious money. So here's the bottom line. You put all of those things together, conflict, insurgencies, political chaos, and they become the #1 reason the lifeblood of any economy, investment, just dries up. And we're talking specifically about something called foreign direct investment, or FDI for short. This is the big money, the capital that builds factories, that funds new tech, that creates good jobs. But here's the thing about FDI. It absolutely hates risk. It needs things to be predictable and safe. And when a region is unstable, that money just finds somewhere else to go. It's that simple.
So, if that's the problem, what's the solution they talked about in Kigali? Well, it's pretty straightforward, really. If instability is what scares everyone away, then security has to be the foundation. It's the solid bedrock you need before you can even think about building a thriving economy.
And how does that work, exactly? Well, it kind of breaks down into 3 key steps. First, when you create stability, you totally change how risky a region looks, which naturally makes it way more attractive to investors. Second, you secure the actual physical stuff an economy needs to run. We're talking trade routes, ports, communication networks, all that. And third, it means you can allocate your resources much, much more effectively. Yeah, just put yourself in an investor's shoes for a second. A strong collaborative security plan makes a country predictable. And in the world of big money, predictable is basically another word for profitable. It sends this giant flashing sign to entrepreneurs, both from overseas and at home, that says, hey, this is a safe, sustainable place to build a business. And this isn't just theory. It has huge real-world implications. Take the African Continental Free Trade Area, for instance. I mean, this thing has the potential to be a complete game-changer for the continent, but, and this is a huge but, it simply cannot work if goods and services can't move safely across borders. It's just not possible. Security isn't some nice-to-have extra. It's an absolute prerequisite. And if you want to talk numbers, just look at this comparison. It puts the economics in the clearest possible terms. Sure, defense and security cost money. Nobody's denying that. But that cost is a tiny fraction of the mind-boggling, long-term economic damage caused by conflict. We're talking about displaced people, destroyed roads and ports, shattered supply chains, the works. Being proactive about security isn't a cost. It's an investment that pays for itself 100 times over just by preventing that kind of catastrophe. But here's the thing. The very idea of security is changing. The threats we're facing in the 21st century, they're not just about soldiers and borders anymore. And that means we need totally new ways to fight back. Don't get me wrong, the old-school threats are still very much with us. Armed conflict, smuggling, transnational crime. But now we've got a whole new menu of modern threats that are just as dangerous, maybe even more so. Things like cyber attacks, massive disinformation campaigns, and attacks that disrupt the digital networks that our entire economies now depend on. And like Rwandan President Paul Kagame pointed out at the symposium, we're not talking about abstract dangers here. A cyber attack isn't just some tech problem for the IT department to solve. It's a direct assault on the digital backbone of the country. We're talking banking systems, communication grids, supply chains, everything that underpins the modern economy. So what's the game plan? What's the new playbook for this new reality? Well, the folks at the symposium really zeroed in on a few key things. It's all about better collaboration so you can respond fast. It's about being flexible, using big alliances when you need them, but also smaller, quicker partnerships. And at the end of the day, it's about making sure your response is timely, whether you're dealing with a humanitarian crisis or protecting critical economic activity.
And all of this, all these discussions and strategies, it all leads to one really powerful and unifying conclusion. A conclusion about taking charge, about responsibility, and about the long-term vision for the entire continent.
The core message that came out of Kigali was loud and clear. Africans have to take ownership of Africa's security challenges. Full stop. The message was that the era of just depending on outside help is over. The future has to be built on mutual trust and a shared collective responsibility for creating a safe and stable home. And you can really see the path forward here. It's a step-by-step process. It all starts with building trust between nations. That trust, in turn, makes a stronger collective defense possible. And that collective defense is what builds a secure environment. And only then, with that secure foundation in place, can you start to achieve the big goals of Agenda 2063, the African Union's huge vision for a prosperous and peaceful future. See how each piece builds on the next? It's all connected. So that leaves us with a pretty big final thought to chew on. If a safe and secure environment is the absolute, non-negotiable bedrock for economic growth, for human prosperity, then what's the world's most undervalued investment? Maybe, just maybe, it's peace itself.